Welcome everybody, Clearwater Jazz Holidays, Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. My name is Steve Weinberger. I'm the CEO of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, and we really appreciate you joining us today. We've got a wonderful session today with our good friend Jeremy Carter, who is going to be working with Sam Dillon, who's here with us today for a conversation with Sam Dillon. We couldn't be more excited to have Sam join us on these sessions. Everyone will notice that participants are muted for the courtesy of the session, but if you have questions, I will help facilitate those questions to Jeremy and Sam using the chat feature. And so make sure you just type your questions, and I'll make sure that those guys see them and we will get to them. We are recording these sessions for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education and Outreach. Thanks for everyone who's been following along. ClearwaterJazz.com, the education and outreach section, has all of the information you need to know to do so. We have our studio archive, so after these live sessions, the full video are archived in the studio, and we also take the audio portion and put them onto the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast. The studio is brought to you by our friends at Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners and Duke Energy, and the podcast is brought to you by our friends at Marine Max Clearwater. In just a few months, that podcast has just hit over 3,000 total plays in several different countries all throughout the United States, and so we're really excited about these resources. And if you have any feedback or you want us to cover a special topic, send that to info@clearwaterjazz.com. So we're going to get right into it. Jeremy Carter, how you doing, Jeremy Carter?
Good, man. Thanks a lot, Steve.
All right, so here's the deal. So Jeremy, let me pin Jeremy for a second. So Jeremy is one of the most sought-after saxophonists throughout the Tampa Bay area. He just, in fact, did one of our CJH Presents Wanderlust series down in downtown Clearwater for a sold-out crowd. It was an amazing show. Jeremy Carter Rubber Band just killing it, and we are so happy to have Jeremy back with us. He's done several of these sessions. If you check out the studio, you're going to see a basic, intermediate, and advanced tenor sax series, and he's helping us grow the Conversation With series, this being the first of those with Sam Dillon. And so Jeremy is a special part of Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education and Outreach, and he's traveled the world. He's played with some greats, sharing the stage with some awesome acts, and he's an active part of Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education and Outreach, including our History of Jazz Outreach program, My Journey with Jazz program, and the Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions. So it's really great to have him back, and joining us today is Sam Dillon, and Jeremy's going to tell us a little bit about Sam as he turns it over for his session today. But Sam is a saxophonist, woodwind player, composer, teacher based in New York, and we are so excited to have Sam as part of these sessions. So without further ado, guys, the stage is all yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. Thanks to everybody over at the Clearwater Jazz Holiday. We'll go ahead and kick this thing off. Just to give some background on our first guest here, Sam Dillon. I met Sam, I don't know, what do you think? What was that, about 2010, 2011, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
It's been about that long. I was making trips up to New York starting in about 2005, twice a year or so. And on one of these trips, sometimes for pleasure, sometimes for work, I was doing some touring up there as well, but on one of these trips around 2010 or 11, I ran into Sam, I think at either Fat Cat or Cleo's. I can't remember which was the first club.
Yeah.
Because it's been a few times. We've run into each other a few times up in New York.
Yeah, that's right.
But if my memory serves me correctly, like the first time I met the guy, they were playing, and I just came up and I was like, hey, man, you sound really good. And I could just tell, like, he was kind of taken aback, like, okay, thanks. Because everybody, like, the New York scene can be kind of unforgiving, and it's just like not, a place where people do that generally. I'm just a Florida guy coming in, and I was just like, man, this guy sounds really good and stuff. And so it struck me that he was like that good, and like taken aback that somebody would actually, you know what I mean? Sam is one of the most humble tenor players out there. Hungry guys, most disciplined. If you listen to him, you can hear the discipline. All the, just so clean and so articulate. Big sound. Has obviously done the homework. Hank Mobley, Coleman. I mean, all the guys. You could hear so many influences in his playing. So I'm really, really delighted to have him here today. So.
Oh man, Jeremy,
yeah,
that's quite an intro, man. And I think maybe part of my hesitation might have been that it was like 3 a.m. at Fat Cat. So I was
right.
What's going on here? Because normally I think my MO is to be super friendly, and I love those sessions late at night in the city when everyone's just hanging out and playing together. So I remember that night very fondly, and I tend to think that the personality in those kind of situations reflects the player. Right. And I gotta say the same thing about you, man. The spirit and the joy that you just brought with you when you said hello, I already knew that you were gonna have a happening tenor sound yourself. So what else is there to say? But except thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man.
And it's always fun to do some kind of reach out and join another community of people, right. Especially in this time when we're all sitting behind our screens. This is a really important thing for all of us to be doing.
Right. So that brings me to my next thing. During COVID, obviously, Steve and I were talking beforehand. Like New York has been affected by everything that's going on, more so than other places because of the close proximity to everybody, the clubs, and just the nature of the New York life. So what have you been up to, and how have you kind of had to adapt to what's going on?
Right. Well, I do a similar thing. I'm not sure exactly the details of your education with Clearwater, but I have a summer camp that I'm the jazz director at, called Used Hand. Obviously going to be pitching that right now because we're aiming to be open this summer. We're hoping to try to do that. So this summer I was involved in an online education program with them, doing a lot of gigs, man. But it was in the form of recording.
Right.
So everything kind of switched from live to, miking up and reading a chart and putting it out there. I did a ton of stuff for the 8-bit big band. I even tried to put some kind of video together with my own quartet, but I'm still trying to put that together.
Right.
And then a lot of teaching. I got a lot of students that are hitting me up and asking me for lessons. And to be honest, they say that, you're learning from teaching. It's really true, because this has been a chance for me to, hunker down and really get all of the stuff that I've been shedding, like start to put it together in these PDFs, which is a big thing now, and organize all the stuff that I've been working on my whole life. So in a way, this whole experience for me is almost like holding a mirror up to all of the stuff that you're shedding and practicing. I'm used to going out the door after I practice, but now I'm not. I'm practicing, and then I'm like, wait, what did I just practice? Mm-hmm. So, to be honest, I think when all's said and done, we're gonna have a lot of badass sounding musicians that are ready to like deal on the bandstand after this is all over.
Absolutely.
So I think everyone's just shedding right now,
Yeah.
which is great. And, you know, Instagram culture too, it's a tool, you know. You don't want to get sucked into that. There is there can be a negative aspect of it because you're just glued to your phone. But,
Right.
you know, I follow the mantra of what Herbie says, which is that it's not the tool, it's the people that use it. So
Right.
I try to use it in a positive way. And that's kind of where I'm at, you know, teaching,
Yeah.
Instagram, recording. Basically, that's the deal.
Yeah.
I do have a gig tomorrow, by the way. I guess I've been averaging like 1 or 2 gigs a month.
I saw you at Smalls not too long ago with like the mask with the little hole in it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Frank was like, put this on. And I was just like, okay, because he's got a kid that he's worried about. And I kind of felt like, you know, Frank, what is this going to do? There's a hole. Like, what is this doing? But like wear a mask. No, but the point is there's a political statement behind it too. Wear a mask.
The optics, yes.
And so I was like, for that reason, I'm like, that's totally cool. Let's do that. You know.
Right.
But,
I'm glad you mentioned Frank. I don't know if you knew this, but Frank and I actually used to play together when we were in our teens.
Yes. Yeah. Frank told me this story, man.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Frank was like, I know him from way back. I was like, well, and as a matter of fact, that he also said when you guys hung in Manhattan, correct me if I'm wrong, that your guest tomorrow, who we all love and revere,
man,
you guys ended up hanging out with him.
Yeah, that is a crazy story. I grew up in Omaha as well as Frank Basile, for everybody that doesn't know, just top-notch, top-tier New York Barry player. But we grew up in Omaha together. We used to hang out with this guy named Gary Foster, a drummer and just a true jazz aficionado, right? And before Frank went up to New York, and so fast forward 10 years, when another one of these random New York happenstances, I'm walking around. This is after Joel and I meet. I meet Joel over at Fat Cat, and he heard me playing there, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm doing this gig down at Bar Next Door, Lyle Turner. You should come down, bring your horn, you know, if you're still in town." I'm like, "Okay, yeah."
Yeah.
Right. And so I just happened to be walking down the street to go meet up with Joel, right? And I hadn't seen Frank in probably almost 10 years, probably. I mean, maybe longer. And I just run into him on the sidewalk. I'm like, "Hey, I'm about to go play with Joel real quick. You want to come?" And, you know, so it was like me and Frank and Joel at Bar Next Door with the rhythm section. You know how small the place is. We're like literally on top of each other playing. But
wow.
Yeah, it was just an amazing New York thing, man.
Well, man, that's amazing. Yeah, any chance, you know, and for guys in my generation, you know, Joel is a special guy, not obviously just because of his playing, but he's always playing. You know, and you know, maybe he'll have a chance to hear me saying this, but you know, he's an integral part of the Smalls scene. Yeah, which is important. You know, it's something that I've definitely thought about a lot, because not everyone at his level is always hanging like that. Right. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, if I have a gig in the West Village, I'm going to be able to go check out Joel somewhere after or before my gig, which is just a testament to the man's love of people and music. So he's a special guy. He's a special guy for that reason. He's always hanging. And it doesn't surprise me that he heard you and he was like, "Yeah, come play my gig." I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about, you know? Yeah. And so that's really cool.
It was crazy, man. He came into Fat Cat, and it was funny because he had his tenor and one of his doubles or something like that. He had like all his gear, right? A tuxedo and stuff. He was just coming from a wedding gig.
Yeah. Okay.
And instead of going home, so yeah, man, he's definitely a special individual, man. Just one of the most approachable and accessible people, just a really good human being, man. We sat and talked for a while, you know.
Yeah. He was, and actually I have a Joel Fromm story too, because way back when I first was like trying to cut my teeth in the city. He said, "Hey Sam, do you want to be my model student for this video?" I forgot what this video, and I was like, "Oh my God, this, you know, Joe From's calling me." And so we shot this video where I was like, you know, he's the pro and I'm the student,
Right.
and I'm still hoping that video comes out, but you know, this is like 10 years ago. I don't think it's going to come out for whatever reason. That you know, the video was fun, but that was the first time that he, you know, he was so warm and open to me, just the same way he was to you. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's how that is how it is here, actually, man. You know, you hear all those, you hear all these stories. It's like, I don't really have that kind of experience. I just think if you're serious and you love the art form and you're you know, you're happy to be doing what you're doing and where you are, I think over the course of you know, a little bit of time, people start to notice
Right.
that, you know. So it's just a matter of staying true to your goals and aspirations and working hard, and things kind of start to take care of themselves, you know, in a certain way. Not that we're not all, you know, busting our butt, but
Yeah.
you know, it's you know, older guys like that, and not to say that Joel's old, but you know, they will see that in you and have a, you know, an open hand for you,
Right.
you know. So that's been my experience, at least. So
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of truth there. If you're a serious player and you're of a certain level and you come out and your intentions are pure, yeah, I think guys will, you know, you'll start to make some headway.
yeah,
You know, talk to people and find out where to go and when, you know.
yeah,
Absolutely.
It's all about the hang too, man. Like you know, that's how we met, you know.
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing is not, you know, you got to get out. And I think I was saying this on another interview I did recently too. Like, you know, there's so many great players I know that don't go out.
Yeah.
And like part of this is a reflection of how you feel about what you're doing. Like if you're working with the mindset to play something for people, or saying something to people, or being out with people, you know, there's an aspect to that. At the end of the day, we're performers. We can't just be, you know, closet freaks practicing the saxophone all day,
Right.
you know? So,
Right.
so that aspect of our music, of this music, is so important to go out and be around people and be social. Because there's that famous interview of Miles where they said, "What would you call jazz?" And he says, "Oh, he says it's social music." And to me, you know, that's how we met. That's all the stories we've been talking about so far.
Yeah.
It's about the hang. It's
Absolutely.
about the hang, you know.
Yeah, one of our other fellow musicians and you know, common acquaintances, Alex Loray. You hip?
Woo.
Yeah. Here's the funniest part. Alex used to take lessons from me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
A very long time ago.
Well, man, sign me up. Sign me up. Man.
Yeah, exactly, man. No, seriously. I mean, he moved up to New York he was going to Berkeley or NEC. He was up in Boston. Yeah. But yeah, after he left here, man, I just heard him recently. He was playing like some classical pieces, like transposing like a sixth away, and yeah, he's serious.
Oh, he's heavy, man.
Yeah,
he's one of the heaviest dudes.
Yeah, man. When I see him now, I'm just like, geez, Louise.
Well, you know, it's funny. He was always like that, and
yeah,
I met him through my very good friend Andrew Gould.
Yeah.
So and Andrew was at Manhattan School of Music at that time, and I was kind of tagging along with him, going to sessions there, and they were both of them were starting with Garzone.
Okay.
At the time. So we ended up in a car one night, all three of us, just rocking out to like some bootleg of Train playing Body and Soul from like 1964. I don't know if you heard it, but it was like one of the other nights at Live at the Half Note, you know.
I don't know.
But anyway, so yeah, I love Alex, and I kind of got to get a little closer with him, and that dude you know, he's like Lee Konitz train everything, man. He's got influences from classical music, and what a knowledgeable and you know, unique, but also extremely well informed musician, man. I just can't say enough about him.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
I want to listen. I want to listen.
right, if you're not playing like Alex, and no, it's crazy, man. I've had some guys work with me that have gone on to do some pretty crazy things. I'm like, man, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about equipment a little bit.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was one of the things that we kind of chatted about at Fat Cat one night, and I know we both play Mark Sixes.
Well, we both did. That's changed.
You don't have your six anymore.
I got rid of my six, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Continue though, because
all right. I know we both also have an affinity for Yamaha horns.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember, I think the first time we met, you were playing a Yamaha custom. And
oh, okay. Maybe I was, you know, there was a period of time where I tried out the 82Z.
Right.
And it might have been that night at Fat Cat. I didn't put the two together. But then I think I just brought it out to the session to see how it was going to sound.
Right.
And then I liked it, but I didn't really go with it at that point. That was the first model of the 82Z.
Right.
And I was still used to my six. I mean, my story is a little complicated. If I should.
Yeah, absolutely. Get into it. I want people to hear this.
Okay.
I want to hear this, so at least I know I'm not crazy.
Okay. No. So I come from an artistic family. Okay. My mom is a painter. So when I got into the saxophone at an early age, they were almost thrilled. It's a unique experience. They were like, "Oh wow, you know, he's gonna," because I come from Great Neck, and people out there are, you know, doctors and lawyers and stuff like that. So
yeah.
So you know, I kind of went the other way. And my family in our community was like the artist family. So when I decided, I like the saxophone, my parents were like, oh, great. So I was into it. And then like at some point in high school, 15, my mom took me to Roberto's because she said, they can look that this is what you're going to do. We're going to get you a Mark VI.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. And I was like, well, and so they took me down there, and this is, by the way, when like Mark VIs were like $3,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Like right. It wasn't as crazy. I think it was still pretty crazy, but anyway. So I show up there at Roberto's, and I was listening to Train. I had some kind of sound going on, but I wanted to get a horn that was gonna get the kind of Train thing that I wanted. And I didn't know what I was doing. It was just me and my mom.
Right.
So I find this horn, and I was like, this is the sound. But the only problem was I couldn't get the high G out.
Wow.
And so, what's his name? Jason Carter was there. And he was just able to get out that high note. It was like unbelievable. And we're like, how are you doing this on this horn? And so I was 15. I was like, okay, if a professional can play that note, I'm going to get this horn. So I got that horn. Now, this is a horn that I shed on for 10 years, like up until, halfway through my undergrad when I was studying with Eric Alexander. So, I couldn't do the overtones on my horn. I was playing all this stuff, and for like the longest time, I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't do the overtone. And it got to a point in one of my lessons with Eric Alexander where he was like, you know what, Sam, your sound is good enough, don't worry about playing the overtones on the horn.
Just get enough. Don't worry about it.
It's just something you can't do. And I was just like, what? Like, I was like, okay. So finally, one day, one lesson, he's just like, here, play my horn. And you know, I was kind of a space cadet back then, so I didn't even think, oh, maybe I should try other saxophones. I was just like, okay, you know, my saxophone doesn't work. I got to get better. I'm gonna listen more train. So, you know, I played Eric's horn, and all of a sudden, I was just like, oh my god, my technique was like, everything was like twice as good. And so that started my obsession and neurotic process of going through maybe about 10 horns in four years.
Wow.
Because what I discovered is that neck that I had from Roberto, there was something inside of it. It was like caramel, you know, it was like caramelized. There was like too much buildup inside the neck.
Oh, yeah.
And even though there was a professional cat there that could get the G out at the time, you know, I was right to feel like there was some resistance, but I was a kid and I just went with the horn, and it actually had a brighter sound to it. So I was like, oh, cool, this is going to make me sound like Train. That actually ended up being a blessing in disguise, because for those 10 years, it was almost like I was learning how to play the horn with weights on.
Right.
So when that came off, my technique was like way better.
Wow.
And so I went, after that point, I was trying Yamaha. I went, like I said, I can't even remember how many Mark 6s I went through, man. Like, and I'm still in that place, because, you know, when you play a horn for whatever it was, 10 years, you have that level of control over the instrument,
right,
that like I haven't really felt yet with a horn. So even though I gave up the instrument because it wasn't working well, I still have this this craving for that level of comfort with a horn, and it's almost like I'm a little insecure about it, because I'm still trying to find that in an instrument, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my whole thing.
Right. So that was the Mark 6 that you just recently parted with.
No, that was the eighth horn. That was the eighth horn.
Wow.
That was like there's a whole series of, I had my original Mark 6 and an old Con, and I traded both of them. And I got the first one that started off was like this mint condition SBA, and I was just like, I played that for like 4 months. Right. And I was just like, no, I don't like this. And so I traded for another Mark 6, and it was just a trading continuum or whatever. Right. You know, it just never stopped, and it led me to this point where I just was like, you know what? I'm getting rid of all of my Mark 6s, and I'm just going to get a modern horn now. So that's why I have the Yamaha.
Which it's an EX or
this is the artist model, which they discontinued. And this is the so this is the last. This is it's the 82Z 3.
Okay.
Third series of the 82Z, right? The last one they made, and I played it, and I love it. And it's different than the 6, as I'm sure you'll testify to. Yeah. The bore and everything is actually, I think, bigger. So I feel like there's potential for the sound to be broader in a way, but there's slightly there's something that's a little less personal about it. Also, it's a little more one-dimensional of a sound. It's a cleaner sound. So there's differences, but I think it's really great. But I'm still searching. I'm still messing around, you know.
I actually kind of take comfort in that. No, because I've been playing the same horn for like 3 years.
Okay.
And I have the Yamaha that I've had a couple dozen horns, but I have a older Yamaha 62 that I've held on to throughout the years.
Okay.
And I just put I put a modern neck on it. I put a Yamaha TV1 neck on it.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, it just seemed like that kind of does the thing. I don't really play on it that much, but it's there.
Right.
I mainly play on my 6. But
so the T is the largest neck.
Well, that's just for the tenor.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the V1, the V is the largest bore one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when I experimented with them, I think the smaller ones, like you said, they may have a little bit more personality and they may have a little bit more punch. But right, the V1, I just felt like with that one, I could put as much air as I wanted to into it. Like I could like intentionally overblow, and it would still kind of remain stable enough.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with the modern horns in general. I feel like everything is a little more open.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at first it's an adjustment because we're used to having the 6 and even the SBA direct the air a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I learned from Ken Bach in KB Saxophone Services, because he came out with those necks that everyone's playing.
Yes. And
he showed me something really interesting, and I'm sure everyone's doing this now, but that in the Selmer necks, there's a contour inside the horn.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's a funnel, and it channels the airflow quicker.
Wow.
Inside the neck.
It's not part of the outer dimensions. You can't even see it. It's like on the inside.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Someone's texting me. Can you? I'm going to turn off my. There we go. Okay. Can you see me? Cool.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually took my the factory. I have an 80,000 Mark 6, and I don't really play the factory neck any longer. This is a neck that is very similar to the KB necks.
Okay.
He more or less took a piece of tracing paper when he was designing this. And, yeah. But yeah, man, this neck works phenomenally. Like I feel like it brought the horn to life. Like it was already really cool and punchy and resistant, but I put this on here and I feel like I get a completely different vibe out of it.
Right. That's great. Yeah. So where I was going with this is before my buddy just texted me. He was pointing out that this is how the 6s are made. None of the modern horns have this. It's just an open neck, so it has this wider feeling. But the part of the reason that the 6s and the SBAs feel so special is because they have this component where they move the air a little quicker in them.
Wow.
And it has a lot to do with the neck. So that's why he started to design these necks that way, and it's it's a subtle detail that a lot of people aren't going to notice, because how often can you actually really get inside a neck and look at the neck?
Right.
So and I'm sure it's not that.
It's almost like a neck.
Not that simple.
It's almost like a neck baffle.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of some kind of baffle in the neck, and it moves the air a little quicker. But now that that's out, and I think it's still a subtle thing, and it's obviously probably a different size for every horn. But now that that's out, and these horns are just straight, it's a different sound concept. So it's a little bit of an adjustment, but I actually do feel like there's something to this that allows for a broader kind of sound in a way. Right. So it's an interesting, it's an interesting adjustment, and I'm really starting to feel like I'm getting inside the Yamaha finally, as opposed to just playing it.
Right.
So
just a quick apology to everybody out there listening. Like, we're gonna geek out on some sax stuff a little bit, so.
I was like, how deep do you want to go here?
We're totally gonna geek out on some sax stuff. So, in terms of mouthpieces, what are you doing?
Okay, Well, this is the mouthpiece that I played for a long time. It's right here. And this is a Florida Link, Auto Link, old Florida Auto Link 7. And this mouthpiece is amazing. I got this from SK Saxophone, and it's an original 7. And that's the mouthpiece that I've been playing for the past four years. And before that, I was playing another Auto Link. What's the one? It's the Dexter model. I can't.
The No USA.
No USA, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still an older Link, and I was playing that, and that was like a 7-star or an 8. So I've always been playing a Link, and then in college I actually had a 9 Florida Link metal, which I wish I hadn't traded, because that was amazing. And I'm kind of going that direction now. Right now I'm messing around with the stubby Retro Revival mouthpiece. Because I think Retro Revival, they're making really good stuff.
Yeah, they really are.
And so I've been digging this mouthpiece and just kind of giving it a shot.
So that's supposed to be like a Duke-off.
It's the Duke-off. Yeah, it's their Duke-off model.
Yeah.
And I always loved Duke-off. That's the one mouthpiece, as far as metal goes, that I always felt that, like, if you get a good Duke-off, it has just a little bit of an edge on a Link, you know.
Yeah.
But they're so close, and you know, I'm gonna go back to them, and I think I'm gonna try to get their Link model also, because those mouthpieces, they're making them so great. They all sound really good, and Bob Shepard's over there demonstrating them, and he's like, you know, one of the baddest dudes, and he sounds great on every. You know, I don't know if you see those videos, but he's like, oh, this one's good, this one's good, this one's pulling out of the box, and I'm like, Bob, that's you, man, come on. But,
yeah, exactly. I'm like, you can put anything on there.
No, but I can hear the sound in that the mouthpieces are really working pretty well right out of the box. So anyway, I'm messing with this right now. In
terms of reeds, what are you doing?
And reeds are D'Addario 3 medium, and unfiled. I prefer unfiled. I think the unfiled gives it a little bit more of a resonant quality to it. I think the filed, they can be a little more of that laser zip on it, but I find personally that after you play it just for a little bit, it gets a little too thin for my taste. So I like the whole unfiled reed. And I am gravitating towards a slightly more open tip these days, and I might go down to a 3 soft. I'm experimenting with like a bigger tip opening and a softer reed, because it's a little easier to play. You can get a little more brightness in the sound, but you can also get a little bit more of the old school thing, and at the same time. And to me, the direction that Brecker ultimately ended up going is that kind of sound. And there's a modern component too. Like I hear that, like I hear in Ben Wendell's sound, for example, that it sounds like that's what he's doing. I think it's an open mouthpiece, but I think he plays like a 2 reed. So I think there's an interesting thing that's trending also in the saxophone community, because like the modern equipment is what, like, Don Bias was using. It's big, or like Lockjaw, like a big mouthpiece with the softer reed. So I'm kind of heading a little bit that direction, not all the way.
And then you mess around with Ligs, or you just like whatever?
This is This is an Ishimori, and the reason that I have this is Ishimori is, I think, the only company right now, or one of the only companies, that's making metal ligatures that are that fit on the like Link style mouthpieces. Right. So that I tried it, and I got this at PW Woodwinds or something.
Yeah, Paul Maslin, PM up in Chicago. Yeah,
in Chicago. Yeah. So and they had it there, and I like metal. I like metal right on the reed. Yeah, I just feel like that gives you the most resonance and everything. So
Right.
I just saw it and I put it on there and I was like, this works. Cool. I'm gonna stick with this. It's made really well, and I feel like it brings the reed, to life.
I've seen you mess around with the older link ligature a lot over the years. A lot of people have varying opinions about it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I like metal on the reed.
Right.
That's big for me because I don't want any fancy stuff on the I don't like the fancy looking ligatures and all this stuff with you got a different plate and you got five plates, and this is your oak sound and this is your cherry wood sound, and I don't want that.
Okay.
I mean, this for some people and it's cool to experiment with,
Right.
But for me, I just want metal on the reed and have it vibrate and leave it at that.
Right. It can get a little overwhelming sometimes with all the different options out there.
Yeah. I think I still have that old ligature here, but it depends on the ligature, man, because all these old mouthpieces and stuff, everything is made differently. So
right.
I don't know if I could even say I have an opinion on those ligatures because, what can I say about that? Well, the one that came with this, the old ones,
yeah,
on the inside of the plate on those licks, it's completely smooth. There's no bumps on it.
There's no ridges. Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I like because it's going to be right up against the reed. But on the new ones, they got the 4 bumps.
They always damage the heel of the reed.
Yeah.
I don't really dig that. Yeah.
I don't dig it either. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Speaking of reeds, for all those guys that are into it, I've been playing on Regattis for a long time, just regular Regatti Golds.
Oh, killing.
Yeah. And this guy, Frank Branch, I just hooked up with him. I'm always on the sax forums and stuff and keeping my eye out and finger on the pulse. They have these new Regatti reeds. I don't even know what they're doing in terms of distribution or whatever, but I just picked these up today, and they're killing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're killing, like right out of the box. They're really killing. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, that's definitely something to check out. Right.
And there's all these new reeds coming out and everything too. And I was taking lessons when I was a kid with Dave Pietro, and he told me something that always stuck with me because new reeds will come out, and the cane that's in the new reed is somehow better always when the reed is new for some reason.
Yeah.
So what he would do is always go and buy like 50 boxes of whatever the new reeds were, and just put them in his closet. And so when I would go over there for a lesson, he would open up his reed closet, and I'd be like, it would look like Sam Ash, man. So like,
that sounds very familiar. I'm kind of like that too.
Yeah. So, and the only reason I'm bringing that up is that I love to hear how it sounds. But for me, I'm sticking with the D'Addario, not because it's a knock on any other reeds. I'm sure they might even be better. Right. But I'm just kind of dealing with this,
Did you notice any change in quality once they switched over from Rico?
I didn't actually. I thought that they always seem really good, and my real kind of MO, or whatever you want to call it, has been my 2 favorite saxophone sounds or saxophone players that use metal mouthpieces are both using D'Addario, and that's Chris Potter and that's Eric Alexander.
Yeah.
And for me, as far as guys that are older who set the standard for a metal sound today,
right?
They're both using D'Addario. So I don't know why, but I noticed that, and so I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me. I'm gonna do that,
Absolutely. I may have skipped over some stuff, but so you went to school in Manhattan, right? At Juilliard, rather.
Yeah. Well, I got my third degree there. That was my artist diploma,
Okay.
and I was there from 2015 to 2017.
Right.
That was it's basically their highest level program. If you're in it, you're in a one band. You know, you're like it was a sextet, and we just basically rehearsed twice a week and did some touring. It was an amazing experience. And you know, that climate and school, that kind of schooling was different than, you know, my master's in undergrad. That program
Right.
was a little bit more of like, you know, you're already a professional. We're gonna treat you, you know, like, and it was like in a different category. We weren't, I mean, almost like not even really students, like half students, half pros there, because we're like all the older guys. At that time, I was the oldest guy in the band too. I think
Right.
I was like 30 or at that time, right? And that's the, you know, average age. Most guys, they end up doing that at like 28, 27, 20, you know, and I mean, that was cool. But that was after I'd been freelancing for 7 years too. You know, I went back to school. Before that, I got my master's at SUNY Purchase, where I was studying with Eric and Jimmy Green. You know,
Yeah.
Todd Coolman was there, Faddis is there. You know, great program, and just the chance to, you know, shed all the time and just learn the language.
Right.
And then before that, I started my undergrad at University of Miami for 2 years.
Okay.
And when I was down there, that was 2002. And in 2002, Troy Roberts was there with me, and Brandon Wright was there, and Phil Doyle was there.
Yeah. Wow.
And you know, that was like, you know, just such an amazing experience, man. And with Whit and everyone. And I'm, you know, being from Florida, I'm sure you know more about that program than I do. But so I started there for 2 years, but I ended up missing New York, and came back after 2 years and transferred to Purchase, and finished my undergrad at Purchase and stayed there for my master's. So it's my whole education experience.
Yeah, very cool, man. So I want to get into what you kind of do in terms of just overall sound development, rhythm. When you're going to work on some stuff, obviously it's sort of specific to whatever you have on your plate at the time, whatever you have coming up. If you're going in the studio and you're going to be in the horn section, obviously there are certain things that you want to sort of focus on to do that. But just in general, like to work on getting better facility, a broader, fatter sound, you know, your melodic approach, you know, obviously transcribing, you know, there's no substitution for just listening and practicing, but I guess like more specifically, what type of stuff are you digging into?
Man, I was always, like you're saying, the most important thing is listening.
Yeah.
The guys. And I'm not the biggest full solo transcriber. And I think that's like a trend now where people learn the whole solo and post it on Instagram. But my feeling is like, I've done that too a little bit, but my feeling is, in general, like, let's just listen to the original recording, man. We don't need to hear you play along with this. Because the reason is that when you're playing along with the recording and you show, okay, congratulations, you figured out what the notes are to a solo, but you're not really, I feel like it's almost missing the point to learn a whole solo and just get the notes.
Right.
Because all along, from Coleman Hawkins which was the first solo I learned on Body and Soul. And, you know, Dom Bias on Body and Soul, which to me is the best and first example of continuation of the art form. Because if you go and listen to that Dom Bias solo on Body and Soul, to me, that's almost more of a direct lineage than even Brecker was to Train.
Right.
To me, like that Dom Bias' solo on Body and Soul is like Coleman Hawkins' next generation. It's just it blows my mind how the influence is there, but he's kind of taking it in just a little further. So I both of those guys for the old school sound, those are my, you know, top two. Lester Young, of course, and then Dexter, a lot of Dexter, a lot of Train, a lot of Train all the time, man. Every era of Train too. You know, especially the 58, 59 era, you know, with him playing through all these changes, and Sonny Stitt, you know, Sonny Rollins. But every time I listen to these guys, I found myself writing stuff out, but not like the whole solo, like I was saying, just ideas. Right. So like, you know, and that's always been my approach. I haven't learned the whole solo, but like, you know, even, you know, this is from yesterday. It's right here, you know. Wow. This is my notebook, man. I'm doing the daily thing from listening. Right. And I think I was checking out some Brecker solo yesterday, and I just wrote out, you know, some more like a diminished idea, and I'll take the idea and I'll try to get it through every key. And I'll try to get it through every key in every inversion, like meaning not just learn it down in half steps or up in half steps, learn it down in whole steps, minor thirds, major thirds, fourths, and try to get the one idea all over the horn. Right. And then apply it to a 2-5-1, you know, and then apply the 2-5-1s on a tune. So there's various levels of the application of material that you figure out from these people. Right. But for me, the thing that's helped me so much is to focus on these little bits of inspiration or things that I hear, and then really make it part of my playing. And so I'm always doing that. And so like I said, you know, every once in a while I'll transcribe a whole solo just to get some time happening, but I'm more of like a bits and pieces guy, and like thinking a lot about how, you know, I want to put solos together and how the harmony can affect the lines that you play, and the composition of a solo, and the tune, and how to play over a tune. Because I do think that, you know, for example, if you learn the whole solo, like I was saying, it's almost an amazing amount of work and a feat to be able to like actually just play the whole solo, but it's almost missing the point. Right. Because when you learn, when you're doing that, you're associating that all of that vocabulary just with that one tune at that one time, instead of really getting inside it, making it part of yourself. And I think that's a you know, important component in at least how I see development as a soloist, you know. Absolutely. You know, so that's kind of where I've always been at, and that's where I'm still at, you know. Yeah.
No, I stress that sometimes when I'm teaching as well, right? And I think that's just kind of a product of maybe our age a little bit, you know what I mean? Because like I remember working at a record store when I was like 16, 17 years old. Right. And just back then, there was no digital download. You know what I mean? You bought the record, you popped it open, you smelled the, you know what I mean? And
right.
read the linear notes, and you listen to the entire album. So, right, like you were saying, like if you transcribe an entire solo, yeah, that's great, but there are like little things within there that maybe okay, that I could use on this tune in a completely different setting. You can take little
Right.
phrases. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, you want to be able to cop a person's stylistic approach, the vibrato, the phrasing. You want to look at all those things. So there's an argument to be made for learning the whole solo to be able to get inside stuff that way and treat it as an etude. I'm not saying that that's not important and that you shouldn't approach things that way. But generally, if you're going to do that, to really try to get in, for example, Sonny Rollins' Time Feel. I mean, I learned Sonny Rollins' whole solo on Without a Song, because that solo is like, in terms of rhythm and I mean, it goes without saying, I don't need to say that to anyone here, but I learned that whole solo at one point. So there are certain solos that are really just so masterful that it's important to treat as an etude. But in general, I'm just saying, like, my general mentality is, if you can hear it already, you don't really need to learn it.
Right.
If you're listening to it in a broader context, you're listening to it in the context of the tune. Oh, that's the move. That's the move he made there. Like, let me listen to the story. If you're, it's the same thing. If you're watching a movie, and I know Wayne Shorter is big into watching movies, but if you're watching a movie and the story hits you, you're going to take away the story. You're not going to take away. You're not going to try to memorize
the lines, yeah,
the script right. From the movie, and you can get into that, and if you really love a certain play or an opera or a movie, you can then go look at the whole script, sure. But the bigger point is, which is important not to forget, is for you to be taking away the story and what happens and what strikes you, and be trying to put things together that way. And so, that's kind of where I've always been at. And the other thing is, the opposite side of the coin is also true. For me, I like to make up patterns for myself. I'm a big pattern believer. And the reason I'm such a big pattern believer is not to be necessarily impressive on the saxophone if I'm demonstrating a pattern. I really feel, that when you have something under your fingers and it's ingrained in your digits, it's muscle memory.
Right.
That when you switch gear and you're about to start creating, that is only going to serve you to be a better artist.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not rambling too much, but
no. This is what we need.
The best analogy that I can think of is, I love The Matrix, man. The movie The Matrix, because at the end of the movie, when she needs to save Morpheus, and I always tell this to my students, and she doesn't know how to use the helicopter. So she's strapped in, and they go back to the guy and they say, okay, upload all of the instructions for how to use the helicopter. And then her eyes open up, and now she knows how to use the helicopter.
Right.
Well, to me, that's what practicing is. We're just injecting all of the information we need, but when it's time to actually apply all of that information, we got to just go and use all of it. So to me, that extreme lesson there of her needing, I don't know how to use the helicopter, I got to save, I have a mission, right? To me, performing or playing music, that's the saving Morpheus time. Right. But the practice is when you're uploading stuff and you're trying to completely get every possible way and every possible direction in your subconscious. So when you have to be in the moment and go, it's going to all be accessible.
Yeah.
You know, and that's that's how I see it.
It's funny you mentioned that movie. I always reference it too. I talk about that movie a lot, but I always talk about the scene where in the first Matrix where he's getting shot at, he's kind of doing the contortionist act. I always talk about that being like soloing.
Yeah.
Like when you're actually performing. And not like the tomatoes at you or whatever, but just you have so much information coming at you at once, and you kind of have to like do this contortionist act through the changes, work your way through, and I always reference that scene.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. That's a deep movie, man. There's a lot of symbolic stuff in there. So
if I could trouble you, can we get an example, like for I don't know, maybe a tune, or if you're talking about like maybe something like "I Love You," or just like a simple like a D minor, a concert D minor, concert C minor idea, like okay, this is how I would sort of approach this. Okay, the piano player drops a C minor, like as soon as I hear that, this is what I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah, let me I hope my reed didn't dry out. The heat started to come on here in New York. I don't know what temperature it is down there, guys, but
it's beautiful.
It's like 35 degrees here today. So that means the heat is on, and that means my reed is dry. So hang on one second.
All right.
Okay, that's cool. Is that too loud?
No, perfect.
Okay. Give you an example. I mean, okay. Right off the bat, I guess D minor.
Yeah.
Okay, just a modal thing. Okay, there's a lot of ways to go. There's a few things I'm into right now. It's this idea. I think I first heard the expression coined from from Jerry Bergonzi. It's called Pentatonix.
Yeah.
Okay. And I did an Instagram video on it a little while ago. But
is that the thing where you were doing like the endless Coltrane thing?
No, that's some other stuff. I'll talk about that too if you want.
Okay.
But the polypentatonic thing fascinates me because if you have D minor pentatonic, if you go up a half step from there and you combine it with like D minor and E flat minor, or you combine it with D minor and C sharp minor, down a half step, or you combine it with D minor and A flat minor, right? So up a half step, down a half step, or a tritone away. The combination of those two pentatonic scales have no note in common with each other.
Yeah.
So you create a web to be able to go inside and out, and you can think of one shape, and you get some really hip sounds that way. So, for example, if you limit yourself to 4-note shapes or 4-note groups, because I guess I'm assuming D minor we're in 4, you can do 5, and then that's another sequencing thing that I like to mess around with. So if we're doing 5, right, let's say I'm going to combine, and I haven't done these two, I'm going to combine my D minor and E flat minor together. And so I'm going to go up 5 and down 5 the other, and then just keep going up every step of the scale. So right, you get some crazy sounding stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And that's just going up and down. Now, of course, you can invert it, up. Right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing you can do,
Yeah.
You get some crazy out sounding stuff.
Yeah.
That's one way to go. and obviously that's unlimited patterns there.
That's super hip.
But, you know, like I said, I like patterns to get under your fingers. So like one thing, you know, like I like the 4-note shape idea, because then you're keeping the same shape in your mind, but you're going in one direction. So for example, I'll practice it where if I'm starting on, let's say I'm going down and I'm starting on C on the D pentatonic, right? And I have a shape like this. Right, very simple shape. That's just C, D, F, blah, 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 blah. So C, F, D, C, right? Next note is going to be on B flat for the E flat minor, right? And I'm going to go B flat, E flat, D flat, B, right? And then I'm going to go down to A, D, C, A. So you're keeping the shape the same, but the actual intervals are changing because you're going in the same direction. And that's a you know, a cool way to practice it. So it sounds like a pattern, but it's not really, you know?
Right.
And then you can change different shapes. Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a never-ending thing. The other thing that you know, comes to mind when you say D minor, you can just wail out on the 5 sound. So you can also go straight up to, you know, A7, right? Or
right, with the major 7 in there.
Right, right. So the major 7, and you can go for the A7. You can go altered to like straight up, you know, E flat 7 or E flat 7 sharp 11 or B flat melodic minor, right?
Yeah.
And mess around with that, you know, the augmented sound in there. Right, that kind of thing. You can also go diminished on the A7, right? So, you know, all the diminished. Right, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and then all the triad pairs on in the diminished scale, A7.
Yeah.
So you got major and minor triads in the diminished scale that are separated by a minor third. So anytime you discover anything in the diminished scale, in this case, it's our A7. So there's an A major triad, there's an A minor triad. There's also C major, C minor, E flat, and F sharp, and you can combine them, right? So.
Yeah.
That's a lot of information to experiment with there.
Yeah. So then the endless Coltrane thing you were talking about. What's that? What's that about?
So yeah, and so dig. In this case, you want to think about not just Coltrane changes, but you want to think about all of the different points in the key where you can apply Coltrane changes to. So we're in D minor. We can do a 2-5 back to D minor, right? So we can start on E minor, and do the cycle that way. Or we got minor there, right? Right? You can start on E minor. But if we're starting on E minor, part of the never-ending thing is that you can also start on the tritone, because then you're going to end up on E flat 7, which is going to resolve back to D minor 2.
Right.
Right? So, you know, then you get, hopefully I don't mess this up. Right? You get it that way.
Right.
Okay, so then what that implies basically is that you can start mixing and matching the 5 chord subs for all the dominant chords.
Right.
which is also really fascinating to me. So instead of going E minor, F7, B flat, we're getting to B flat. That's the third chord change, right, for the giant steps changes. So how can we get to B flat? Well, all of the other chord subs that we would play normally on a standard, we can apply to get to B flat. So we can play B7 instead of F, right? Tritone sub. We can also play A flat 7 going to B flat, right? Which is the whole step below, right? That's on stage. So now we're going E minor, A flat 7, B flat. And you can put that sub in through the whole cycle, right? And we're resolving to the fifth. Right? So that's the whole cycle there. And then you can also go a half step below, right? So E minor, A7, B flat, right? E.
Okay.
Wait, let me see if I'm doing this right. I don't have that one worked out as well, but it's a half step. So yeah, let me think. E minor, A7, B flat, yeah. And then then F sharp, and then C sharp 7 to D minor, right? So you get that, and the end of it. Okay, so now the next step after that is that for every 5 chord that you get to, that 5 chord sound in and of itself can go to all of the other major keys that it normally would go to. You dig? So if I'm putting tritone sub, I'm going E minor, F7, B flat. Now I'm going E minor, B7, B flat. Instead of going to B flat, right, I can go back. Well, in this case, you would go back to E minor, so that one doesn't work. But B7 is also a whole step below C sharp.
Right.
So now you get a cycle. You get a cycle where you can go to C sharp major, right? Because now you're switching to major chords that will work in a different way with the 5 chord, right?
Right.
So you're basically you're organizing an approach. You end up organizing an approach where it goes in whole steps, half steps, or minor third, and it's completely free,
right,
based on whatever tonality you want to end up resolving to.
You're still doing the 3 tonic type of thing.
You're doing a 3 tonic type of thing, but you're choosing where you want to go whenever you want, which is, so it's like it's organized through giant steps, but it's an organized approach to just playing basically whatever you want.
Right.
And you get into different keys, and to me that can be a dangerous thing to start doing because because it never ends.
Right.
You know, so that's why it's never ending giant step. But at the same time, if you apply it in the right way, it sounds amazing and it's fun. And I mean, Garzone lives there, man. I mean, This is like this is just touching on the tip of the iceberg for what he's doing. That's some other stuff. The reason that I came up with this is because I actually kind of interpreted some of the stuff that I heard Brecker doing as if he was playing giant steps in different keys. Like I started to hear like some of the, the figure he'll always play, right? He'll always do that. And I'll hear him do that kind of, that kind of stuff. So I kind of started to feel like, okay, what is he doing? And I just like look at the shapes and Grossman too. And I mean, Joel might have some more insight on this than me, but to me, my interpretation of that was there's kind of like a giant steps influence in it, but it's not totally purely, he's not just playing giants or or the cycle. It's really a countdown. It's really a count. But he's not playing the whole thing. There's like a moment of it, and then he's going back. So I kind of decided to use that vocabulary as an impetus, again, for me to kind of come up with my own way of processing it.
Right.
Which in and of itself, I think, is the more important lesson, which is what I was talking about from the beginning. You know, you're listening to stuff and you're figuring out your own stuff from it. So that's kind of where I come up with this concept of never ending giant steps. It's a way to do that. And if you use it in the right way, it sounds like giant steps for a second, but it's not really, you know?
Right.
It never ends, man. It's never ending. It's never ending.
Totally hip, man. Mm-hmm. Totally hip.
So,
man. Once again, man, I want to thank you for coming on here with us. And this has been amazing, man. We really
I can't believe it's over already.
Yeah, I know, dude. It's been like a little over an hour. Man. We I hope we get a chance to meet up in person sometime soon.
Yes.
And do this type of fellowship.
Oh man, absolutely, man. I mean, anytime you're in the city, of course, just you got to hit me up. And I really appreciate the Clearwater Outreach Jazz organization for having me. I love the title Outreach. You know. Yeah. And man, it's an honor for a player, of your level and experience and everything, man, to invite me into your world, so to speak. Man. Yeah.
Well, hey, Jeremy and Sam, we appreciate you both very, very much for being part of all this. I have a question, and there's one question from someone that participated today. So if you don't mind, I'd love to share that with you both to see if either one of you wanted to field it.
Sure.
Yeah. So, the question from Martin: Hello, Sam and Jeremy. Do you have any tips on not rushing when playing fast lines? Also, how have you worked on your sound, Sam? Thank you in advance.
Oh, okay. Well, Jeremy, do you want to go?
No. You got it.
You sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Not rushing. Actually, it's funny. Maybe it sounded like I was just rushing just now, but I have a tendency to drag, and I think that's because of where you end up feeling the beat. So my advice with time in general is to learn something so well that you're really feeling it. There's a crazy element to music where almost being conscious of something you're doing can actually take away from doing it. So, ultimately we want to get to this point where we really are feeling it. And that's a deeper lesson than applies to modern jazz times. If you listen to someone like Dexter or all the old school cats, players, they to me, it doesn't even sound like Dexter cared what the tempo was. He's just going to pick up the horn and he's going to feel it. And you can, even if it's a fast tempo, but that's the crazy thing. Even when he's dragging, it's in time, So I think that the deeper lesson with time is to internalize what you're doing. And that just is a matter of playing it, I mean, yes, you do want to practice 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Right, you want to be able to do that forever. Practice time that way to get your eighth notes happening. But beyond that, I think it's a process of just internalizing your vocabulary. And then you can put it at whatever tempo you want. As far as sound goes, I'm listening to all the great players. I'm trying to keep my throat open. I'm trying to sing. One nerdy saxophone thing I like to do is that really I feel like opens up my throat. And then again, I thought of this from listening to my favorite players. Dexter almost sometimes can sound like he's like a little flat in a way. Not really though, but like, and then Train to me also sounds like Train can be sharp, but there's this, what I'm trying to say is there's this quality to all of the great big saxophone sounds that to me, it sounds like they're under the note. And so it sounds like they're coming up to the pitch. So because they're everything is open, right? So I was trying to figure out a way that I can force myself to try to be more open. And the exercise that I came up with was just play a C scale, but try to make the C scale sound like a B scale, because I'm purposely lipping the scale down. So it's not just taking one note and doing it down a half step, it's taking the whole scale. So I'm here at C. Let me see if I can make. Now, sounds like a dying goose, and if you're practicing and mom's listening to you, you can tell her, Mom, if it sounds like a dying goose, that's what Sam said I'm supposed to sound like. So, and it's true, because what you're doing is you are forcing your physical being to get rid yourself of all of the natural tendencies that will go into making a G sound like a G. It's not just focusing on the one note. When you're ingrained in your head to play a G and have it sound a certain way, you're literally forcing everything that you've ever done to not do that and be lower. And I feel like if you do this with every major scale, it has made a difference for me in terms of just feeling like I'm coming up to the note, you know? Because it's hard. It's not that, you know, it doesn't sound great, but it keeps my throat open. Gives you that open flexibility to the sound. And it's hard to go the other way. It's harder to play sharp than it is to play flat, right? We have more flexibility on the bottom end of the note. So I'm just kind of working that muscle, you know? So, yeah, that's my answer.
No, that's a great answer. Sam, we also have a question from Anita. She mentions the Smalls live streams have been a sanity saver during quarantine. As a non-musician audience member, she's curious how you perform your best without an audience, and how important is that to the equation, and she thanks you.
Oh, thanks so much, Anita. I appreciate that. And that's an amazing point to make. I don't want to take any credit for that. That's all Spike and all the amazing staff at Smalls for having so much heart and passion for the music that they've been able to keep the club open. So that's a testament to them. And I know Joel will probably have more to say about that than me too. I think he just played there the other night. So
yeah. Especially with the jazz standard closing.
Right, especially with jazz standard closing too. So that's just, you know, what else can you say? But yeah, it was weird. It was weird play at Smalls without a crowd. I was oddly nervous in like a way that I hadn't felt nervous in a long time, because I was just out of sync of picking up my horn and actually going out the door and playing for people. So that was the first thing I had to get over, because there haven't been many gigs. But then getting there and, you know, finishing a solo and like no one's clapping, you know. And so that's kind of, so what me and Frank were doing, we were like clapping for each other, you know. We were like, I remember Frank finished one of his great solos, and I was like, yeah, from the back. But yeah, it's a little weird, you know. And now, but that when we did that in September, that was before the club had actually started having like 15% capacity or whatever it is now. So now there are some people there, but the whole staff at Smalls made it feel as close to the real thing as they could. But yes, the audience plays a real part, man. I mean, there's no question that, you know, playing for people, presenting your work, presenting your soul, your voice is such a that's what this is all about. We're expressing ourselves, you know, and that's definitely one of the deeper or more profound lessons of this time, which is that as great as technology is, you know, we need to be around each other, and the audience plays an important part. And this music thrives when we're able to be with each other, you know. Again, it's a social music, so the audience is extremely, extremely important. Otherwise, you're just sitting at home, you know, playing for yourself. And that's not really the full point of it all. That's not really the full, you know, we're connecting with each other. There's a message in this music, and all the great players that we love, there's a message, you know. It's not just about the notes. It's not just about the song even. There's a deeper message in the music that we love and are inspired by, you know. So we need to be around each other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great, Sam. I was thinking I have speaking of message, there's a lot of young people that follow the Clearwater Jazz Holiday tradition, a lot of young musicians that we try to create opportunities for all the time, whether they're through our programs or performance opportunities. And so we always like to ask our guests about a message to those students. And, you know, think about yourself when you were in their shoes, when you were in high school and you were inspired to play or maybe playing with jazz band. You know, the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation creates this long-time festival tradition that has all these performance opportunities, but it's really these programs, you know, that create these learning opportunities for them or pair them with more established professional musicians. So when you think about yourself in their shoes at that time, do you have a message for them that you'd like to share today as part of these sessions to help to inspire or guide or something else maybe?
Yes. You know, we're at the end of the day, we're all individuals. We're all our own people. And I think the most important thing to remember is that you don't need to work on being you, is how I see it. You already are you, and that's already a beautiful thing. What you want to do is absorb from everyone else, take what you want, and just add it to your pot that's already cooking on the stove, right? And I think there's too much dialogue about being original, not being original, this versus that. And the way I see it is that if I call Jeremy on the phone he's going to know it's me by the sound of my voice. And I didn't do anything to work on that. That was given to me. Now, what we talk about, that has something to do with what I want to say. And that's something that is under my control. But he's going to know it's me. And that's something that you got to be confident about, not just at peace with. He's going to know it's me. And that's a reason to smile, because we're here and we're communicating together. And I think there's too much, in this art form especially, and as an artist, there's too much self-doubt that goes into, oh man, I'm not good enough. No, you are good enough. And you have all the tools that you need to be what you want to be. Listen to yourself and don't doubt what you already are. Just absorb and be you, I've learned that I started that way, almost to a fault, almost in a way, almost maybe seemingly stubborn. I'm going to do this, and I don't give a damn what anyone else says. And to be honest, I think there were a lot of people that might have, when I was a young kid, said, oh, well, you might have a little bit of an attitude, blah, blah, blah. And now looking back on it, I was like, no, you know what? No. That stood out, because not a lot of people are raised to have that kind of love and self-confidence. But I came from a household where I was lucky enough to have a loving and supporting family, and they gave me that. So my message to younger kids is that I want to give that to them. And it has nothing to do with music itself. It has to do with being you, and do your thing, and believe adamantly in yourself. And that learning from other people is only going to make you more of yourself. It's not two separate things. You're just going to become more of yourself, And I heard an interview with Seamus Blake, and I think this analogy is so great. He talks about cooking a pot of soup on the stove, right? And it's like you're making your own soup. And at first, when you have your ingredients in the soup, they're separate ingredients. And you can see all the ingredients. But as you let it continue to cook, you can't taste all the individual ingredients anymore. It just tastes like your soup. So just remember, you're at this stage, you're putting your ingredients together, and you can see all the ingredients at this point. But as you continue to go along, you're just cooking. You're cooking.
Man, I'm hungry now.
Yeah. Campbell's.
Yeah. Yeah, right. No, that is a great message, and we so appreciate your time sharing with us today. Jeremy, I do have some closing remarks, but I wanted to turn it over to you first before that to see if you had anything else.
Yeah, man, I wanted to close it out. Once again, thanks, Sam, man. What a wonderful, beautiful human being. Just immensely talented. Just the hard work and all the dedication to everything that you're doing. It shows. Keep doing what you're doing, man. We really appreciate you so much, man.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, so we really appreciate everybody who has participated today and who will be watching and listening in the future. We appreciate Sam and Jeremy's time very much today for helping to grow this wonderful treasure of information. Sam mentioned Chris Potter earlier in the session, and we just so happen to have Austin Vickery joining us at 4:30 today as part of our What I Love About series, and his focus is on Chris Potter today. So for those listening now, there's some really great session materials that Austin prepared that are already up on the website, and Austin's been doing a great job. And we've got Jeremy returning later this week, both tomorrow and the next day, with our Conversation With series, continuing with Joel Fromm and Jeff Vidal. So it's going to be really, really awesome week with Jeremy, and we hope we can also stay connected now with Sam as we continue to do what we do, because I really enjoyed today's session with both of you, and I just am so happy and honored to add this to the sort of growing archive that we have. So on behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, thank you again to Jeremy and to Sam, to everyone who has been participating. Stay safe out there. Be well, everybody. Keep playing, keep practicing, keep listening, keep being inspired, and we'll see everybody back real soon. Take care, guys.
Beautiful. Thank you.